So, I'm going to congratulate Napheesa Collier for winning MVP. Not MVP, Jesus Christ. For winning Defensive Player of the Year. Could she have won MVP? I think there is an argument to be made. I think that if it wasn't for the media thing about Aja being unanimous MVP, I think Fee should have gotten some votes. If I had a vote, I would have probably gone with Aja, but it was this close. It was honestly this close. If you had to ask me, I would have gone Aja, Fee, especially just because the way the Aces ended the season. If the Aces didn't end that season 9-1, like if the Aces were the 5th seed, and I know team record doesn't matter, but it's like, you can't give someone MVP on a 5th seed, in my opinion. I would have gone for Fee, but I think it was neck and neck. I think Fee Collier might have had one of the best seasons ever to not win an MVP. But I will say this, she was the best defensive player on the best defensive team. She was not only their anchor, she was switch. She had the ability to switch. She got in lane. She would guard the other team's best player. And Aja Wilson stood under the basket. Like, Aja Wilson is Hassan Whiteside on defense. She is Joel Embiid. And apparently now, the only reason the narrative has changed. So Becky Hammon, the coach of Aja Wilson, has said on Fee Collier, I told you my thoughts. If you have to go down a rabbit hole of analytics to put someone in the same conversation, you already have the answer to your question. Said Collier is a great defense player, but Wilson's been dominant, protecting the rim. She added there are certain players that scare her defensively, listing Alyssa Thomas, Brittany Sykes, and Natasha Cloud. Basically saying, like, this is bullshit. Fee Collier is the best defense player in the W. She was the best defensive player this season. She won it relatively comfortably. But now the narrative is that, you know, like, look, again, I'm Irish, but, like, the narrative is that somehow Aja Wilson won or didn't win Defensive Player of the Year because of a race thing. Like, I don't know the backgrounds of all these players, but, like, I don't get it. I don't understand it. I don't know what's going on, but normally they give it to the best defensive player and the best defensive team. They don't normally give Defensive Player of the Year to Hassan Whiteside, where you lead the league in blocks on, like, the 7th, on, like, the 5th or 6th best defensive team. Like, they don't normally give Hassan Whiteside Defensive Player of the Year. And yeah, I mean, you might be saying that, like, based on all defensive ratings, the Connecticut Sun were the best defensive team. The Connecticut Sun were the best defensive team because they made it a grinded out game. They weren't the best defensive team. They were the best defensive team because a lot of the times they just made the game a gritty game. Like, we saw in the playoffs, they can be a good offensive team if they wanted. They just slow the tempo down, make games low scoring, so their defensive numbers look better. Like, they were a pretty good defensive team. The Lynx are a great defensive team. And Fee Collier, well-deserved Defensive Player of the Year, by the way. A well-deserved Defensive Player of the Year. She was able to switch. She was an anchor. She guarded the other team's best player. And she didn't just stand under the rim. I'm just saying it right there. I'm just saying it right there. Like, it is what it is. But we've now seen the WNBA, the old fans, turn on Fee Collier. And for a lot of people saying, oh, if Caitlin Clark just did Unrivaled and she was UConn, maybe it's not even a thing. Maybe it's just that she's not Aja Wilson. Like, maybe it was that she stopped what the old fans wanted to prove. The point the old fans wanted to prove. And it seemed like the point they wanted to prove was that Caitlin Clark, these young players, you know what, it doesn't matter because Aja Wilson's the best scorer, the best defensive player. She's going to win another title. She's going to win another finals MVP. She's going to do all of this. And it doesn't matter what anyone else does because it's all Aja Wilson. And Fee Collier was the player that maybe, realistically, it shouldn't have been unanimous. Someone should have voted for Fee. Like, let's be real. If it wasn't for the fact that Aja Wilson was crowned unanimous Defensive Player of the Year, unanimous MVP, and Finals MVP before the season started. This team was expected to win 35 games. Or there or thereabouts. They won 10 games less than they were expected to win. And Aja Wilson, yeah, her shot blocking numbers are up, but she doesn't guard anybody. She picks the worst player on the other team and stands under the basket. She's Hassan Whiteside. Albeit, she's Hassan Whiteside in defense, Joel Embiid on offense. Joel Embiid's her best comparison, even if you want to call her Joel Embiid in defense. Joel Embiid is the best comparison to Aja Wilson. And by the way, like, that is literally like saying, there are people that argue Joel Embiid's the best in the world in the NBA. Like, that is, I'm going to say this, I'm going to say, like, she is, like, exceptional. Saying someone is Joel Embiid, just because the public doesn't like Joel Embiid, doesn't mean that Joel Embiid is bad. Like, that doesn't mean Joel Embiid is bad, but that's who A'ja Wilson is. There's no comparison to Fee Collier, because she's not quite the passer of a Jokic. There's no WNBA Jokic. But, yeah, so the WNBA don't post anything on social media for nearly 2 days. And then they make sure they drown out the Defensive Player of the Year. They make sure everything is about the games. A space. Randomly in the middle of all this, they drop Defensive Player of the Year and then immediately start tweeting out stuff about the next game. Like, it's like they tried to do everything they could to the actual WNBA to drown it out. But, yeah, it is. I will say this. That because it's like the worst part about this is, again, it's not about the basketball. The WNBA ignored her 42-point game, but like it's not about basketball, because if this is about basketball, she's the Defensive Player of the Year. I'm sorry, in 2016 the conversation was between Kawhi and Draymond Green. Like, nobody's looked at Draymond Green's counting stats and said he wasn't Defensive Player of the Year in those times. People have said like he should have won more, but yeah, we've seen like I don't know. We're seeing, like, the old WNBA guard. It's just gatekeeping. If you're not one of the favorites. And, like, Fee Collier went to UConn. She freaking runs Unrivaled. She's an owner of Unrivaled. But it seems like the general discourse is, like, you've got to be... It's like, I'll say this, like, even though as great as Fee Collier is, maybe she's just not part of the club. Maybe she's not part of the club. Fee Collier stays off social media. She's not terminally online. She stays off social media. She's not somebody to put down other players, put down other teams, put down the media in the media. She just gets on and plays basketball at a rate of at a level that no one is doing right now in the WNBA. Since the break, she has been, without question, the best player in the WNBA. And I don't think you need to be a rocket scientist to see that. And she has been the best player in the WNBA since the break. But yeah, and I read a comment. I'm just reading a comment here, and it says, Fee Collier is incredibly close to being a threat to the anointed one in A'ja Wilson. And it's like, the reason they turned on Caitlin Clark was that they thought maybe she was a threat to A'ja, who they anointed. And Fee Collier not only is a threat, I think there's a very good argument to make. Like, the Minnesota Lynx, if you offered Minnesota Lynx A'ja Wilson for Fee Collier, the Minnesota Lynx would say no. And I mean that. They would say no. And for people being like, oh, the Olympics. Fee Collier missed a month before the Olympics. She was injured at the Olympics. And yes, she wasn't great, but at the same time, like, I'm sorry, how many NBA teams would take Jason Tatum over LeBron James in a trade right now? Very few. But anyway, yeah. That is the video. Thank you guys for watching. Please like, comment. Sorry, we'll take LeBron over Jason Tatum. Very few. Very, very few. But LeBron obviously killed at the Olympics. But anyway, that is the video.